Good afternoon, everybody. Has anybody got a mum like mine? Quite a common thing that mums do, who finishes every sentence you start before you've got to the end of your sentence. Right. Anybody do that themselves? Right. My mum, bless her, at the age of 90, is still capable. And it's one of the things that all human beings do, is we jump to conclusions, don't we? Another word for that is prejudging. You think you know what's happening when you don't. Give you a very quick story just to illustrate what I'm talking about before I get into my talk. There's two businessmen coming home from a meeting one day. It's getting a bit late, and they've decided to take a shortcut across country. Sat-nav says it's a shortcut, so they go down this lane, and car breaks down. Middle of nowhere, dark night. They see a light in a field. They presume it must be a farmhouse. So they trudge down to this farmhouse. They explain to the lady who answers the door what's going on, and said, would it be possible for us to stay the night? And the lady says, yeah, sure. She said, but you need to understand, it's a very small community here, and being a widow, I've got my reputation to think of, so if you wouldn't mind, would you mind sleeping in the barn? It's dry, it's comfortable. They said, yeah, sure. So they slept in the barn that night. Next morning, managed to get the car sorted out, and they were off. 9 months later, one of them gets a letter from this widow's solicitor. And he reads the letter. He thinks, this is weird. This can't be. What's going on? Eventually, he rings up his colleague and he says, do you remember 9 months ago, car broke down, we stayed at the widow's farm? The guy says, yeah. He says, during the night, did you wake up at all? He said, yeah. He said, you didn't go up to the farmhouse, did you? He said, well, yeah, I did actually. He says, when you went to the farmhouse, you saw the widow? He said, yeah. Did you spend the night with her? He said, well, yeah, I did. He said, and in the morning, did you give her my name and address? And the guy said, well, I have to own up, yes, I did. Why? He said, well, I've just had a letter from her solicitor. She's just died, left me £1 million. See, what's interesting there, I just said to you not to prejudge, didn't I? The only reason that story was funny is because you will jump to a conclusion. Anybody remember the old Bruce Lee movies of the 1970s? I was a great fan, still am. One of them, Bruce Lee, is stood there and he's holding this cup of tea, and the master guru guy is pouring tea into the cup, and the cup starts overflowing and it burns Bruce Lee's hand, and he chucks it on the ground. He says, what are you doing? And he said, the master says, well, the problem is, he said, that cup of tea was a bit like your mind. He said, your mind is so full that anything I try to put into it just flows out again. So over the next 20 minutes, try and empty your mental cup. Try not to prejudge anything. And I want you to try and look at this as though you've got totally fresh eyes, even if you've been in the business for 10 years. Sorry, I'll leave that up. 20 years ago, well, it will be in September, Wendy and I had a friend of ours, Glenn Hobden, pop round one evening and showed us a video, the old cassettes type, which was all about Kleeneze. I got excited, I got involved. Wendy was sort of saying, well, I've heard the name, but here we go again, are we trying something else weird? And I started up, signed up. That was in the days when you got a kit and all your catalogues all together, all at one go. I had a load of catalogues. Spent the evening putting them together, and the next morning, 6 o'clock, I'm off delivering 200 catalogues. Got to be home by 8 o'clock because I've got to get ready to go to work. And as I'm out there putting those catalogues out, I'd seen I knew that Glyn was already doing well in the business and it was working for him. There was a guy called Jim Nicholson who was already picking up sort of £9,500 a month income, so I knew the money was there. But there I was putting out those catalogues, and I think we're all the same, and if you're just starting or you're just about to get started, you'll go through this as well. I'm putting the catalogues thinking, yeah, but is it going to work for me? And it's funny how we circumvent our logic circuit sometimes, and we think we're going to be unique enough for it not to work. And I'm out there doing that, and little did I know that this funny little cataloguing thing, which was going to get me out of my job, hopefully, and certainly make us some extra money, that over the next 20 years, or 19 and a half years now, as a result of me putting those catalogues out and telling a few other people they could do the same and them doing the same, that resulted in £178 million worth of sales. Isn't that incredible? Who would have thought? A few years later, we went on to become Kleeneze's first millionaires. That's back in the day when £1 million was quite a lot. Okay? And as you know, there's quite a few of them now. But if you'd come to me on that morning when I was putting those first lot of catalogues out and said, Chris, do you realise that what you're doing now is going to result in £178 million worth of sales over the next 19 years? You're going to become millionaires. You're going to end up living in a £1 million house with your own tennis court and swimming pool and all the other things that Kleeneze has done for us over the years. Can you imagine what my answer would have been to you? Oh, I thought you're mental. How can you relate that activity of being a postman, putting catalogues through doors, spreading the word and telling other people they can do the same? How can you relate that really to a projection over 19 years? Well, you imagine what I would have said to you if you'd said that to me, but I want to just reverse it for a minute. If you're just getting started in Kleeneze, how do you know that's not going to happen to you? It might sound absolutely ridiculous for me to say it to you right now, the same as it would have sounded absolutely ridiculous for you to say it to me back then. When we started, as you can see on the board here, we were in a recession. It was pretty much like it is now. There's an area in Bristol, which at the time I think was the biggest housing development in Europe, called Bradley Stoke. By 1992, they were calling it sadly broke, because negative equity. People were losing their houses. Sound familiar? Pretty much like it is now. At the time, we came up with this, avoid the recession, alternative route, Kleeneze opportunity. And we've revived it lately as well as a message to people. Oh, flashing lights and everything. So the question is, could this be the way forward to both improving people's immediate finances and securing their futures in the UK's and Europe's current economy? Well, we're all biased and I'm going to say absolutely yeah. But let's put some logic to it, shall we? Kleeneze provides a unique economic ladder to climb. What is the key requirement that those people out there who haven't yet heard about Kleeneze and who we're going to tell, what are the key requirements that's going to allow them to climb our unique ladder? What is the most important things? Number one, background or experience. Number two, intelligence, ability, skills. Number three, personality or character. Number four, something else. You can now choose. Do I have to press this again now for you to choose? I think I do. Oh, no. Oh, I've just messed it all up. Anyway, you'd already chosen by the look of it. Okay. 2% background or experience, absolutely agree with that. If you'd seen me back in 1992, stood out the back of the dry cleaning shop where I worked as a trouser presser, scruffy individual, you wouldn't have looked at me and thought, he's the one. I'd love to have him. How would you know? Background. Saw the surfer dude with a ponytail walking along the beach up in Tyneside, Gavin Scott. Would you have thought, he's the one? You just don't know. So background seems to have absolutely nothing to do with it, same as experience. Intelligence, ability or skills. Any of the premiers will tell you that if you've been to one of our premier discussion groups, you'll know intelligence doesn't come into it. In joke. Personality or character. Yeah, to some extent. You know, if you're an effervescent, lively sort of person, yeah, fine. Okay, that will possibly help. But I would say the whole point of network marketing is not dependent on you. Let's say you're so incredibly shy that you're the sort of person that somebody just looks at you and you colour up and blush. Yeah? You say to me, fine, I'm quite happy to anonymously put these catalogues through doors. I don't mind actually delivering to product from people who have already bought because they're going to like me anyway and they're going to be glad to see me. But I really don't want to get into all the sponsoring stuff because it's just not me. And I say to you, well, do you know anybody who's extrovert? You got any friends who are real extroverts? You say, yeah, loads. I say, well, I'll tell you what, why don't we go and sponsor all your extrovert friends? They can do all the team building, you can just carry on retailing. Do you see how that works? It's not about you, your abilities, it's about the people you introduce. The same analogy obviously is often used with time. You know, if you've only got 5 minutes a day to spend on Kleeneze, you go and recruit some people who've got 8 hours a day to spend in it because it's all inclusive. Or 34%, something else. I happen to think that that is the thing. It's the ability to work hard, knuckle under, and stick with something. Yeah? I think that is probably the common denominator. If you talk every successful person in this room, the one thing that links them all is their ability to work hard and stick with it. Remember, the bottom of the ladder is crowded, not the top. What do I mean by that? Right. If you're in a normal job, how many people can get to become senior manager? How many people are allowed to get to managing director, etc., etc.? Okay? It's usually one, isn't it? If you're in the army, how many people can get up to being colonel? Only a few. Kleeneze, how many people are allowed to earn £10,000 a month? At what point is Kleeneze going to say, whoops, we've got enough SEDs now, too late, you can't do it anymore, we've got enough There is no limit. Everybody, but everybody who joins Kleeneze is allowed to get to the top of the ladder. Everybody, without exception. And there won't be anybody saying, ooh, not you, right? They'll all be saying, yes, please, you. Right. So, we've established everybody could join this business as long as they're prepared to work. If they're lazy, don't want to get off their bums, chances are they're not going to be very successful. But anybody who likes this, look at all the opportunities, prepared to work hard, we could save them from the recession. Maybe manage to keep their house, whatever is happening in their lives. So, what are they going to have to do? Well, number one, when we first started, the only option we had on retail was hundreds of catalogues through letterboxes and pick them up. And that's pretty much what everybody did, and today pretty much what most people still do, and a really successful way of doing the business. Since then, though, we've added a few extra things, like online shopping, which people really aren't utilising to the max at the moment. Party Plan, as you've heard. Party Plan is just amazing. As far as I'm concerned, Party Plan, done properly, does the whole business for you. The three priorities, if I was doing a party, would be number one, my number one priority of doing that party would be to recruit you, the host or hostess. That would be number one. Number two would be, get some more parties booked. Number three would be, get some sales as well. What do I mean by that? I'd rather have a party of £50 with 4 parties booked and 2 people recruited than a party of £400 with none of the above. Does that make sense? Right. The retail is like having your own corner shop. You've now got your own little corner shop. You can have as many customers as you want. Oh, I think we've also got the Easy Spy one on there. And then the company says, but you're also allowed to build a chain of stores. So you've got your own little corner shop that you can build to as big or as small as you want it to be. You can now introduce other people, a chain of stores, and you earn a residual income on that. So if you're business-minded, you're a franchisee and a franchisor. You get to get best of both worlds. Fantastic business. So you put out catalogues, you do parties, whatever your method, or maybe you're doing a combination of both, and preferably a little bit of everything, like Lisa said, all the rods in the pond. And you sponsor me. You have no idea how to do parties, and I want to do parties. You don't even need to know how to coach people, because you can take them to the company trainings or your upline trainings. You don't know how to, you've just joined the business, somebody asks you an awkward question, you say, oh, that's a good question, I'll go and ask our upline. And you all learn while you're training. Does that make sense? So even that, you don't have to do yourself. So these very two simple activities of retailing a product, having a little corner shop, telling other people they can do the same, could lead to lifestyle. That's what most people think of as lifestyle. That is actually a boat that we all went on for one of our conferences, which was the Sea Goddess. Absolutely amazing. But lifestyle isn't necessarily that. Lifestyle is, did you know, for most people on an average income, in an average household, by the time they've paid their mortgage, they've paid out for the kids, they've paid all the things they have to pay, groceries, etc., rent, rates, blah, 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 they say, about £20 to £30 a month which is their own money that they can do what they like with. 20 or 30 pound that they can just go and say, oh, I'm going to go mad and splash out 30 quid, right? If you show them how to make £100 a month extra, you've quadrupled their lifestyle money. Do you see that? Lifestyle could be having a holiday this year instead of not having a holiday this year because you couldn't afford it. Or you can take it all the way up to the luxury items, which I'll show you in a minute. Unrestricted income, what do I mean by that? Unrestricted income, I prefer that word as opposed to unlimited income. Unrestricted means there is no restrictions. It means if you want to put catalogues under your bed and not do anything, you're allowed to. You're allowed to earn nothing if you want to. Nobody's your boss. Nobody's going to come along and say, oi, get those catalogues out now, otherwise I'm going to fire you. No. Or you can go absolutely crazy, mental like I did. Put catalogues out through... Is anybody, after about 3 weeks of joining, you're driving along the road to work and you're looking at doorsteps? Like that? Have you done that? All of a sudden, every house you go past has got a little pound sign on the door, hasn't it? You know, it's like, right? And you just went crazy like an evangelist, trying to recruit everything that came within reach, right? Not everybody wants to do that, but what happens is you start going up the unrestricted income instead of staying where you were. When I first joined, Clint came round, showed me that DVD. We lived next door to an SO garage at the time. I ran next door to get some cigarettes before they closed. Girl behind the counter, I said, by the way, I sort of knew her from going in there. By the way, do you know anybody around here needs a second income? And she said, what's that doing? And I said, Kleeneze, you know the catalogues that go through the doors? And her face dropped. I could see, oh, she's not interested. And split second, I was thinking, why did I say that? That's not why I joined. I didn't join because I thought, oh, fantastic, I can trudge the streets putting catalogues out. Did anybody here join because they wanted to go around putting catalogues out? No. Anybody here join because you like the idea of trying to recruit the rest of the world into something? That's just the vehicle, isn't it? So why was I discussing the vehicle with her instead of the journey? So I said to her, first thing that came to my mind, well, I tell you what, it's the only way I found of making £50,000 a year. And she said, how much? I said, well, there's people making far more than that, but I'll be quite happy with 50. How about you? She said, you're right. So I ran home, got the video, dropped it into her. Next day she came over with 2 friends, and they all joined. So, subliminal message there, how long should you wait after you've joined before you sponsor your first person? Wait at least 10 minutes. And luxury, Wendy says that for every year we've been in Kleeneze, there's been at least 1 new car. So, if you like cars like I do, well, boy, have we had some nice ones. The 7 Series BMW was probably the best ever. It's got more technology than they used to send the man on to the moon. It's probably a 645 convertible, 4.5 litre petrol engine. I was doing my bit to warm up the planet, you know, get the summers a bit better than they were. But luxury, it's difficult to imagine getting that sort of luxury when you're just starting and you're out and you're wet, putting catalogues out on a drizzly September morning like I was. How do you relate those two? All I can tell you is, if you listen to the rest of today, you'll be absolutely convinced, as long as you've emptied that mental cup and just become like a sponge, take it all in, just take it on face value and go and do it. Not necessarily easy, but very, very simple. Heard that before? Yeah. Does that mean you know how to do everything you need to know how to do before you start? No. It means everything you've got to learn is very simple to learn. Let's give a quick example of what do we mean by simple. Everybody recognize one of those? Everybody know how to use one of those? Everybody here know how to tell the time? Okay. May I suggest that you probably learned that when you were about 6 years old, 8 years old, somewhere around there? Is that about right? Something like that? Okay. So it must be something incredibly simple for you to have been able to learn at that age. So let's just imagine for 1 second that you've never seen one of these before and you have no idea what it is, and I'm going to show you how it works. How to tell the time. Well, you'll see the first hand we're going to come to is the red hand, okay? The first hand is called the second hand, okay? With me so far? Yeah. Right. You're not confused at all by now, are you? Right. The second hand is the minute hand. What we just said, hang on, the first hand's the second hand, but the second hand now is the minute hand. Okay. The minute hand is the hour hand. Okay. Now you're with me so far, aren't you? Now imagine this. When the second hand, which is the minute hand, points at the 1, it's 5 past. Right. Obviously, when it points at the 3, it's quarter past. And at the 7, it's 25 to. How many of you at this point are going, that looks way too complicated, Chris? If you'd never seen this before, right? But you know what? It really is simple, because you learned how to do that when you were 6, 8 years old. Now, some things that you learn in Kleeneze look complicated, but there's nothing, and I mean nothing, that you have to learn in Kleeneze that you couldn't have learned how to do when you were 6 to 8 years old. That's how simple it is. Does that make sense? Right. What were the 3 most important things that Wendy and I found simple to do, or simple to learn how to do when we first started? Number 1, setting goals to change our future. It amazes me how many people don't take the time to do this, or don't read a book to learn how to do it properly, or listen to some Jim Rohn tapes, or Darren Hardy. Everybody remember Darren Hardy? If you don't, talk to your upline, get some of his information. It doesn't just give you things like cars and holidays and all the things that goal setting is aiming towards. What it does, it gives you the self-motivation to make you do the things you don't feel like doing sometimes. Anybody can hang in there when it's all going great, can't they? It's when everything seems to be going wrong, as does happen and will happen in any endeavour we try, and Kleeneze is no different. What makes you hang in there when it just doesn't seem to be going right for you? Okay? It's the Harley Davidson. It's that trip to Disney World. It's paying off your mortgage early. Whatever the goals are that you had. Because as Jim Rohn says, if you're waiting for somebody to come along and motivate you, what if they don't turn up? We've got to be self-motivated in this business. So we found that really simple to do. Do we have to learn how to do it properly? Yeah. It's not just a case of grabbing a picture and putting it on a cupboard. Do some studying. We found it really easy to attend every meeting and training we possibly could. We wanted to be influenced by the people. We wanted to learn. I needed to get all the information I could. I was just like, in the early days, Chris Mason-Paull turned up at a meeting. I had a reputation of people saying, whatever you do, avoid Chris Mason-Paull after the meeting, because he'll get you in a corner, he'll milk you dry. And that's what I did. And I see people today go to meetings, and they have an opportunity to talk to Bob Webb or somebody who's done really well in the business, and they spend 20 minutes trying to impress Bob with how great they are, instead of shutting up and listening to what Bob's got to say. Big tip, guys, big tip. We found it really easy to do that. We found it really easy to get into reading books, listening to CDs that would increase our knowledge, affect our thinking, and ultimately transform our lives beyond all recognition. 99% of all the success Wendy and I have had in Kleeneze is because of what we've read and because of what we listen to. Some people aren't into that. That's fine. Not everybody has to be successful. So, with a bit of lateral thinking from all the books that I've read, here's a question for you. How could you increase your business by 30%? Right? Put 30% more effort in. Number 1. Number 2, find 30% more people to join. You know the old adage, you want more milk, you've got to get more cows. Anybody heard that? Drop 30% more catalogues and tell the team to do the same. That's the person who says, yeah, but I've already got a herd of cows, and I'm sure they're only producing 50% of their yield. Now, that's a valid point, because if you're doing 50% of the yield, why double the herd? Number 4, all of the above. Excuse me. Number 5, something else. All ready? All of the above. Absolutely correct answer, but I want to give you an idea of what's something else, something different. You know the problem is with 30%, you put in 30% extra time into your business, you might not be able to at the moment. It's quite a big chunk, 30% extra, isn't it? Putting out 30% more catalogues, that's going to 30% more people. I'm getting as many as I can already. So let's have a look at an idea of something else. Find 3 areas that you can increase by 10%. Because if you increase 3 areas by 10%, they compound together, you've got 30% growth. Yeah? Make sense? 3 times 10 equals 30. Total growth, put only 10% effort. Hey, that sounds better, doesn't it? Interested? Okay. Let's focus on what we can control immediately, i.e. our corner shop. And, oh, excuse me. Number 1 rule of leadership is setting the example. Your corner shop sets the example, and you'll get some of the people in your team will follow you, and the growth should come through duplication. So, how often, this is a question for you, how often do you drop your catalogues to existing customers? Every 8+ weeks, every 6 to 8 weeks, every 4 to 6 weeks, or more frequently than that? Every 4 to 6 weeks. Okay. Every 8 weeks plus, none. 5%, 10% more frequently. I know we shouldn't mention other companies, but are you aware that Avon does it every 3 weeks? They've done it, they do it okay for themselves, haven't they? So, just a thought. Okay. Let's use an example. It doesn't matter which one you press there, okay? Let's use, here's this for the first 10% idea. If your frequency of catalogue drops to customers is, for example, every 6 weeks, and this applies whether you said 5 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever, okay? We'll use 6 weeks as an example. That means you'd get 8.46 drops per annum. That means your average customers coming into your corner shop 8.6 times a year. Yeah? Imagine if you could get those customers coming in 10.4 times a year. Do you think they might buy more from your little shop? That makes sense? So by going back every 5 weeks instead of every 6 weeks, you actually effectively get your customers visiting your shop 20% more often. Now, some people might say 5 weeks is too soon. Some people doing 5 weeks already say, well, 4 weeks would be too soon. I refer you back to my comment earlier. 3 weeks. Second 10%. I didn't say any of this was rocket science, by the way. If you're looking, cool, that's simple, Chris. Most things are. Whatever you plan to drop, add 10% more. Now, you're saying about doing extra catalogues. We're not talking about 30% more, we're talking 10% more. So let's say, for example, excuse me. Let's say, for example, you're doing 200 catalogues, we're talking about doing 220. Now, honestly, how much extra time is that going to take you? Another 20 catalogues a week. You're hardly even going to notice the extra effort. And on a weekly basis, it'll seem like it makes no difference. But if you look at it over a year, that's 1,040 extra catalogues for seemingly no extra effort, for very little extra effort. If 10 of your people in your team copied you, that's an extra 10,400 catalogues out a year from such a simple idea. And here's the thing, guys. Kleeneze is already giving us 10% extra catalogues. Anybody notice you're getting 55 instead of 50? Right? That's not permanent. Right? It's there. It's a 10%. Now, somebody comes to you at work and says, I'm going to give you a 10% pay rise. And you say, I won't bother, thanks. In the marketplace today, everybody's, well, 10%, fantastic. Kleeneze gives us 10% extra catalogues, and I know this doesn't apply to anybody in this room, but some other Kleeneze distributors out there just said, oh, I've got some extra catalogues. And they haven't actually utilised them to get their 10% increase, pay increase. Crazy, isn't it? Third 10% idea. Average customer order is £10. If you're fairly new in the business, when you've had several hundred orders, count how many there are, add up the total, divide it in one into the other, and find it's between £8 and £12. It's around about £10 from every customer. So, if for no extra effort, you could get your customers ordering, 1 in 10 of your customers who ordering an extra £10, that would be 10% extra, wouldn't it? Yeah? Make sense? Okay. How can you do that without spending any extra time talking to the customer, demonstrating something, chatting to the customer? Well, as some of you already picked up on, the company's already produced a little template that you can actually use as a slip. Now here's the way it works. You pick up an order, a catalogue that's got an order in it. There's a customer who likes our products. You pop through the door an Easy Spa brochure with a little template saying, thank you very much for your order. As one of our select customers, perhaps you'd like to have a look through our new Easy Spa range. There's a sample attached, please feel free to use. I will be taking, here's a good phrase to use, I will be taking orders for these products when I deliver your other products. Sorry, I didn't say that, but you know what I'm saying, yeah? You only need 1 in 10 to buy one of the Easy Spa products, which average at about £10, in fact, even better now with the other ranges that are coming on. You got 10% increase. How much extra time did it take you? Hardly any. The time it took you to put some of those things together and staple a sample on. And they cost 8p each, guys. Worthwhile investment? So, those might sound like some really silly examples. Do you know what the thing about silly things is? They usually work. People go out and try these things. I know a lot of people are already doing these type of things. Talk to them in the break. You'll be amazed at the results people are getting. Most people are getting more than a 10% increase by putting the Easy Spa brochure out, right, at the point where the customer's ordered. So, just a thought. One of the comments that Lisa made earlier was there's a lot of people out there who are desperate at the moment, but there's a lot of people out there who have got good jobs at the moment on a good income who are desperate as well. Because, or probably even worse, running their own business in a conventional way. They are up to here with all the constraints, the confinements, if it's a normal job, you know what I'm talking about, all the things you have to do, you're not allowed to do, etc., etc. People are running their own businesses right now, bank manager on their back, they can't get any extra money, they can't grow their business because nobody will lend them money. They feel like they've got all these fences and constrictions around them. Well, what Kleeneze allows these people to do, and allows all of us to do, is to live life like someone left the gate open. I saw that picture and I just thought, that is it. You join Kleeneze, your gate's open. So I suggest you enjoy your escape. Thanks for listening.